everyone, and welcome back to the Sporting Global podcast. And today we are diving into the esport world. We're here with the BBXH, or the proper name D. So first of all, D, thanks for taking the time. It's a pleasure having you part of this.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And I think, first of all, I just gotta ask you about the name. How did you come up with BBXH? Or was it yours? Or who came up with this?
Okay, so XH is actually a clan tag from way back of Minecraft servers. There's one called XH Craft. And so it kind of started from that. And when I started streaming, I didn't know what to expect. So I was like, I feel like I need to pick a name that it has no ties to me before streaming. So, and I used to always call people almost like a pet name, BB, oh, hey, BB. So I decided I'll be BBXH.
No, but it's a great name though, and I mean, it's been stuck ever since, I guess. So it's been working, I guess.
It has, and I didn't even think about it before, but alphabetically, for when things are listed alphabetically, I'm always at the beginning, which I hadn't considered, but I do appreciate that for things that I run into.
I guess it's like a perk, right? And some of the things to think about. I mean, shit, maybe we should have changed our name then. We're Sporting Global, right? But I mean, I guess now it's too late.
Yeah.
But
now you're stuck with it.
Yeah. But we love it though. We love it. It fits well. Yeah. So we're happy. But we're gonna explore a little bit into, like I said, the esport industry with you, and I mean, obviously, I think first and foremost, for those of you that don't know you, if you could just give you a little bit of background about who you are, how you started your streaming career, because kind of that's your big thing right now. And also as a streamer, I always thought it was interesting to why certain streamers chose certain genres or certain games. And for you, it's sort of like Sea of Thieves. So if you could just share a little bit about that, I think it would be a great way to start this conversation going.
For sure. So I am a full-time streamer, and I have been full-time for about, I guess, 3.5 years now, but streaming for 4.5 years.
Nice.
And when I started my streaming career, I was just working a full-time 40-hour-a-week job at an office, and decided to start streaming kind of as a hobby, or just to kind of try it and see what would come of it. And I ended up enjoying it and getting some good opportunities in it, and eventually got to a point where I could be, sustainable with it full time. And I made that switch, which was a little scary, but ended up working out for me.
Right.
And so that was kind of how I got started, and that's who I am. And then I also do esports broadcasting and hosting whenever I have the opportunity to, which has been awesome. And then as far as for choosing a game, so the first game that I actually streamed was before Sea of Thieves, was Clash Royale. And it's a mobile game. Most people, I think, know, if they don't know Clash Royale, they usually know Clash of Clans.
Yeah.
All made by Supercell, same company. And they had just come out with Clash Royale. So it's the same characters in Clash of Clans, but it's a primarily 1v1 game, tower defense, just on mobile, very simple. And it had just come out, I think, just before March 2016. And I started watching people stream it to try to get better myself, because there's a lot of strategy in it, and how to play different characters that you have. So then I kind of got to the point where I was like, oh, maybe I can do this, because I do have a background kind of in entertainment with modeling and acting. I worked in that since high school. Nice. And then I've been a gamer my whole life. I had an older brother growing up who used to want me to watch him play video games.
That's how it usually starts, right?
Oh yeah, with that first love for gaming. And so that's how I chose what to start with. And then it's been a long ride of ups and downs, and in landing on Sea of Thieves now. I mean, I tried it after I realized Clash Royale wasn't for me anymore. I tried to do Dead by Daylight full time. I just couldn't grow in that. Same with Hearthstone. And I had played Sea of Thieves since beta, just kind of on and off. But I always loved that game because the graphics are just beautiful.
Right.
And it's more of a laid back game. It's more of an adventure game. Whereas I came from Clash Royale, which is extremely competitive.
Yeah.
And so it was a nice change for me. And then from there, I just kind of got locked in and have been playing it ever since for almost 2 years now, I think, consistently.
Oh, okay. That's, I mean, like, I guess like that's kind of long though, right? For like sticking with
Yeah.
a game, I guess, especially
Yeah.
streaming wise too, because I guess like, um, and I know like obviously I've been obviously without like being into the whole streamer mindset and mode. I've been obviously watching some streams, and I think a lot of like the people that are listening to this, which you know is a lot of young students and professionals. I think they can casually say they will, even if they don't have time, maybe watching like playing games, they go in and watch someone stream and like play those
Mm-hmm.
games. And I guess like a lot of the times like I guess your audience sort of like you know also have their favorite games and say, oh, like why can't you play this or why can't you play that? And I guess you probably
Oh,
heard that
yeah.
like a lot. how do you
All
how
the
do you
time.
kind of like get like, no, we're playing like Sea of Thieves, or what is your approach to this?
Man, I mean, usually I just tell people I don't know if that one's for me or like,
Right.
because especially I ran into that really hard with after Clash Royale.
Yeah.
I think what really hurt Clash Royale back in 2017 was Fortnite coming out. And
Yeah.
because if you think about it, like a lot of the crowd for Clash Royale is a younger crowd because
Right.
it's on a mobile
Yeah.
phone, which everybody has. You don't
Yeah.
need a console, you don't need a PC, and it's free.
Right.
And so that's a lot of the Fortnite crowd is younger crowd. So man, as soon as that came out, all the time people were like, play Fortnite, play Fortnite. But I just told them, I'm like, I am just not into
Right.
first person shooter. I'm not into shooting games. I'm just not. So
Yeah, that's fair. But can you just explain a little bit on like what is the concept of Sea of Thieves for those that don't
yeah.
understand that game? Because I mean, like, I guess it's kind of like interesting to like dive a little bit more into client since that's your focus.
Yeah. It's definitely a unique game. So you are a pirate in this
Nice.
game and you can play it solo or you can have up to 4 people on your crew
Okay.
and there's different ships and there's no building in the game. You just automatically get a ship when you log in
Okay.
and your focus in the game is there's different commendations that you can work on or
Right.
achievements. So you're for collecting different types of treasure or you can work kind of as a merchant or
Mm,
a reaper when you're PvPing with other players.
right.
And you just kind of sail around and you can dig up treasure. There's also puzzle quests.
Nice.
There's also a competitive mode called Arena where it's 15-minute match, almost kind of like a battle royale,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
not last ship standing for
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
now. But the beauty of Sea of Thieves is that you can never avoid danger, so to speak. So you may
Right.
have all of this treasure on your ship, but you could have like there's some PvE in the game, like there's a giant megalodon shark that attacks you,
Mm.
or there's skeleton ships, and they can come after you at any time. But you also can't avoid PvP. So
Yeah.
there might be like maybe you and I are on the same server, same ocean, and
Right.
you see me with a bunch of treasure and you
I'm
can
going
go after
straight after
people.
you. I'm going straight after you.
Yeah, and you can take people's treasure right off their ship
Right.
and try to run away with it. And people hide on each other's ships. It's a lot of
Oh,
fun.
that sounds a lot of cool. We might have to check that out at some point.
You should. It's a
Yeah.
lot of fun.
All right. So I mean, like obviously you mentioned you sort of like officially started streaming, I guess, in 2016, and I mean like it's been 4 years now. Like a lot of things have changed, and like what are some of the changes you have seen as a streamer, and like from 2016, I guess, from obviously going into like okay, this is like what I'm gonna live and go after like full time, but also like in a sense of like how the element and status of a streamer has changed over the last 4 years.
Yeah. That's a really good question because it has changed so much in such a short time.
Right.
And I do think going back to Fortnite and like that really, I think, changed the world of streaming and of Twitch. I can't tell you how many times people ask me, what do you do? And I say, oh, I'm a streamer on Twitch. And they go, oh, it's Twitch. And
Yeah.
most people don't know. And
Right.
you really have to explain it to them. That I always say it's kind of like YouTube, except you're live and you're gaming and you talk to people. And people are like, what? Like,
Yeah.
so confused
Why
by it.
would
But
you do that?
right. Like people actually all the quote I get from people who don't know, oh, you actually get paid to play games. And I'm like,
Right.
well, Not necessarily, but in a sense, sure.
Yeah.
But it's changed so much. And I think nowadays more people know what Twitch is. And if they don't know what Twitch is, they know what streamers are. They know what gaming streamers are. Like almost everybody knows who Ninja is at this point. And I do think that, like, love him or hate him, he's opened up the world's eyes to gaming and doing that as a career and being successful with it. I mean, he's been on so many popular talk shows and things like that. And I think companies are realizing, like, okay, this could be really good for business, or there's good collaborations. Going back to Ninja, he paired up with Drake, and that was so successful for both of them, at least in my opinion. And I mean, we saw last year, obviously in the States, one of the biggest sporting events of the year is the Super Bowl for the NFL. And they did the Streamer Bowl on Twitch, where they paired up NFL players and some of the top streamers, and so many people came out for that. So I think it has grown and it's become much more mainstream for people, and people are starting to see, like, okay, there's something to this, and this is an up and coming world.
Right. No, I completely agree. And I think it's like, as we talked about a little bit in the beginning, in terms of awareness, right? And knowing what it is. And I mean, like, I'm even like that old as we were like talking about, like, sort of like PewDiePie, like revolutionizing, I guess, like on YouTube and playing video games, right? And kind of like how that led into like people, okay, watching other people play. And then obviously, you know, Twitch was smart enough to see a gap in the market where people, you know, and I think a lot of people can relate to just the fact that maybe, you know, they don't have the money for, like, you know, playing their own games or having consoles or like a PC or what it might be. So why not watch someone, you know, play the game you wanted to play? You know, it's almost like kind of like the same, and maybe build, you know, that connection. But from like a personal standpoint, like from your journey, like what are some of the things that you've been learning and seeing the most in those 4 years?
Man, I've learned so much. I think I've learned for myself to be comfortable with it. I think because of the topics we just talked about before, I felt a little, nervous about telling people, "Oh, this is what I do full time."
Right.
Maybe not embarrassed, but maybe a little bit about it. Whereas now I'm so proud of it. And I'm so proud to tell people what I do, because people understand what it is now. But I've learned a lot about myself in doing it as well. Like, you learn so many things from people, about people. You learn a lot of how to deal with people. It thickens your skin, because I mean, we both know the internet can be a brutal place sometimes.
Even if it's live, I guess.
Yeah. And I feel like I was definitely a sensitive person before.
Right.
And I'm still me, but like, I've definitely grown a thicker skin, which I feel like, I don't know, it's been helpful. And you learn how to communicate to people in a way, I think, that's strong, but you can still be kind to people no matter what.
Yeah.
And just learning things about business as well, of, what works, what doesn't work. It takes a lot of trial and error, as we all know, in content creation.
Yeah.
And I think those are probably the biggest things I've learned these past 4 years.
No, I can imagine. And what a journey, right? And you talk a lot about, again, it's different once again, it's when it's live, right? And you have like that interactions with people. And as we just talked about before we started the podcast, like, you have people coming in maybe like for just a few seconds, and then you have people that are, subscribing to you and like following you and like watching every stream. Like, how do you balance that out? And like, what was some of the things you were thinking about in the beginning of like, how do I interact with these people?
I guess you kind of learn as you go, in that sense, because some people, they come in and they'll tell you about something that's going on in your life, and then they'll come back tomorrow, and vice versa. Maybe you share something on stream and they come back in tomorrow and they ask you, "Oh, well, how did this go? How was that?" And you kind of feel like, wow, this is kind of cool. They're listening, and like, we're building a bond and a friendship, even though, I mean, they can see me, but I can't see them, but we're still like, you build a bond with those people. And the people who are new in your channel, I mean, some people pop in and say hi and never come back, or some people pop in every now and then and say hi. And so it's been a learning experience. And I feel like the balance is just kind of comes from like who comes in chat that day. And And I
Right.
try to like be mindful and remember things, and
Yeah.
I just enjoy. That's probably one of my favorite things about streaming is getting to know people and learning from
Right.
people.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you are dealing with people,
Yeah.
you know, and I think this is a very very key factor that I think people just think it's about playing games or like whatever you're streaming, right? It doesn't just have to be games, but
Looking into the future, the beginner faces a choice that leads him to the triumph, or not. Being surrounded by like-minded professionals can be the best guarantee that you actually take that crucial career step.
Sport in Global is a digital network for sports jobs. It gives you the chance to be involved in the sports industry no matter who you are, regardless of gender, nationality, and experience.
Our AI system matches up talent with human resources. Candidates who align with the company's values and needs immediately get shortlisted. It saves time for HR and increases the opportunities available to applicants.
The platform identifies tailor-made recommendations based on user needs, so you're always aware of the possibilities out there right now.
Sport in Global is a place where students gain key tips about jobs and build the valuable connections that are essential for people at the beginning of their career path.
The path from candidate to champion starts with a single step in the right direction. Sign up to Sport in Global.
Sport in Global, the best way to enter the sports industry.
but like obviously, I assume like the streaming and like, creating the videos, creating the content and all this like takes a lot of time. And obviously, balance in life in general is very important. And I know you've been focusing a lot on, fitness and health. And how do you sort of like balance, both of these things out? Because, they're both time consuming, but at the same time, you gotta, I guess, stay fit, in order to produce the best sort of content and stay on top of the game. So I'm just kind of like curious how you balance that and balance your life.
I mean, I think the thing is that, you always have time for what you want to make time for.
Right.
And you just have to learn what you want to prioritize or what you can delegate
100%.
to
Yeah.
people or hire people for
Yeah.
to help you out. I definitely have had help from people to get to the point where I am now. Like I just
Right.
hired a YouTube editor because
Nice.
that was something I realized, like I don't have the time to do this, and it's not something that I personally feel like I'm good at doing, and I'm okay
Right.
with that. But I'm gonna outsource this to somebody else to help me do this. And
Yep.
but I mean, as far as like the fitness and things go, I just had the hardest time recently, actually, because last year I competed in my first bodybuilding competition, and then I did another one this year, and you really have to be super consistent with it.
Right.
But after that kind of goal of like, okay, I'm competing this state, after that was over, it was so hard for me these past few weeks to get myself on track with motivation. And it took me a few days to realize like, I can make this happen.
Yeah.
And for me, I started getting up early. I got up, like today I got up at 4:30 to go to the gym at 5. And that way I
Right.
can get on and be on my stream. And because I start stream early, I start at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
Eastern, and I could start it at a different time. But
Right.
that's been my time slot for a long
Right.
time now. There's people I want to play with. So I realized, okay, I need to make this happen. And I wanted to make it happen. And so I did. And I tried. I think you just have to realize that like you can make time for those things. Like the people
Right.
that say, oh, I don't have time to work out. Like you do.
You always
Like
have
sometimes
time.
you always have time. It really only, you give yourself an hour, 45 minutes. That's all you need.
Yeah.
And you can make that happen. But sometimes it's giving up the things that you maybe do in excess that you like watching Netflix or
Right.
playing games off stream and things like
Right.
that you can just take a little bit out of that to give it to somewhere else. And that helps create that balance.
Absolutely. And obviously, you talked a little bit in the beginning about, your experience within the esport world as like a caster and host. And I'm kind of like curious, like how that door opened up for you, and like, is this something that you've been, thinking about as, I don't know, I guess like maybe a potential like career choice, like after this, or like balancing it out, like tell us a little bit about this, because I think it's interesting.
Yeah. So like we talked about, I started my streaming career with playing Clash Royale, And in Clash Royale, it is a competitive game. And I started hosting tournaments on my stream. And that's actually what helped my stream grow because people wanted to compete in these tournaments. And sometimes I would do gift card prizes because you can buy gems in the game. And again, it was sometimes a lot of younger crowds. So maybe they couldn't afford or their parents wouldn't allow them to buy gems. So here's a way for them to earn it. So it really started growing. And then they started having these in-game tournaments that were really expensive to put on. And it would cost in-game gems the equivalent of about like $700 or something along those lines.
That's
so it was and not many people hosted those, but it would hold 1,000 players. And so there was somebody who had an esports organization, and somebody from my stream worked with him and linked me up with him. And with him, he said, hey, if you host this so people have a place to go to get in the tournament, I will sponsor this tournament and I will pay to have it, to organize it in the game. So that's how it kind of started for me. And I would host these 1,000-player tournaments, and it was nuts. People would wait in your chat. You'd have so many people in the Twitch chat. And as soon as you gave the password out, that thing with 1,000 players filled up instantly.
Cool. That's so cool.
It was insane. But from there, obviously, I wasn't playing in the tournament. Maybe sometimes, but most of the time, I would spectate people's games and I would commentate on the games. And then more and more people, these just kind of third-party community members started putting on tournaments as well, and would ask me to cast them. I casted so many of these tournaments on my stream, and a lot of them I wouldn't get paid to do, but I just enjoyed it. It was great practice for me. And from there was a guy from an esports organization, Mo Esports, and he was going to be hosting a live esports event called Northern Arena. They still do Northern Arena up in Canada.
Oh, that's cool.
And through somebody else I knew, they were looking for casters for it. And so somebody suggested my name, luckily, and gave my name to him. And he said, yeah. So he hired me and one other guy from the community to cast it. And that was my first opportunity. So I traveled up to Canada, to Toronto. And that was my first experience kind of like being at the desk and, with the whole headset, the whole setup. Players were there live on stage. And they were doing other games, Hearthstone and maybe League or Pod or something like that. But they were also doing Clash Royale. And so that was kind of and then from there, they did another one, which they brought me back for. And then eventually the game company Supercell, they started deciding, okay, we should be hosting our own esports event. And they had already, seen my work through that and seen me do these live productions. So had reached out to me to start hosting these. And it just it was a snowball effect from there. You get booked for one and people say, okay, these are the casters for Clash Royale. Let's bring them on for this event and that event. So that's kind of how it happened.
Yeah, no, like it's a trickle effect, right? Like once you get the ball rolling, and of course, you're good at what you're doing. And you know what you're talking about as well. I think one of the key things is the game, like in and out too. So it's like, it's what's going on. Like it's easy to kind of play along and kind of create good content. And obviously without maybe even think about it, it's a great practice also for I guess being a streamer, because you have to do live talking and you have to be engaging, and there's a lot of stuff to think about on that, and that's amazing to hear kind of your journey on that, and how you what has been your thoughts kind of moving with this further? Is this something you see oh, I always want to do this sort of on the side? Is this something that exploring different other kind of games, or just being part of either as a host or as a caster? What has been sort of your thoughts on that?
I honestly would do casting and hosting full time if I had the opportunity to. And I've gotten the opportunity to do it at least for a few months at a time for a series that they were filming. But I love that so much. I tell you what, and I think I kind of realized that I liked it back when I was working in I went to this modeling and acting school, and I ended up working there for a long time as well.
Right.
And I realized the modeling stuff was fun. Too short to walk on the runway. It just is what it is. Acting, not my thing.
Right.
But I really loved the kind of world of being on stage or being on camera and being in that entertainment role, but still being yourself.
Right.
So being like a caster, a host, a news anchor, etc. And I realized that's what I want to do. That's what I really love. And I really, where I see myself is I would love to do it full time. Maybe that's in esports, maybe that's in TV show hosting, maybe it's in sports casting, whatever it is. Like that's my long-term goal.
Nice.
You know, and maybe it's on Twitch, maybe it's on TV. I don't know. I'll just kind of have to see where the journey takes me.
We'll have to keep following that track to see where it leads you. I mean, like at the end of the day, though, like I guess like the streaming itself is a great practice for that current role too. And I see like there's several people coming up from whether that's making videos on YouTube about the games, and then suddenly they're being invited to being casters at the tournaments, and now like they're sort of like a staple, right? And that's kind of cool, and like seeing that. But I think it's also one thing like you touched upon too, is like, is there a competitive market and a landscape for that to actually do business? Because I mean, like obviously without the tournaments, like how are you going to do it? So I guess like that's also like a huge factor for like where you can contribute in terms of like the game side. But it's cool to hear that you're kind of like also already been thinking about like, okay, maybe there's stuff outside the esports world, or like maybe it's inside, but kind of like exploring that caster role. Like, will be interesting to see for sure where your path goes. And we're sort of like about to wrap up here, and there's always like one question we always like to ask, because there's a lot of young students and professionals here listening, and I think there's a lot of people that I think would tune into this that has a passion for like maybe being a streamer or like working in the esport industry somehow, but it's still like so young, right? So people, especially like maybe in not the typical markets like the US and Asia and everything, like it's a little bit more professionally and well more organized. I think like would be interesting, like what tips do you have for say like a student that wants to learn more about streamers and how to work in the industry, but also from a business side, right? Because I'm thinking like there's a lot of potential in terms of helping the streamers, like there's a lot of new streamers coming up probably daily on Twitch, like going on and like trying to create content. And I guess like I would assume like there's some potential in terms of grabbing that, of helping these streamers, whether that's linking them up to the right kind of organizations or finding them, or what it might be in their pad. And what kind of tips do you have from your experience so far, and what opportunities do you see moving forward?
There's a few things that come to mind. So I think obviously they should find something that suits their strengths and something that they enjoy doing. Absolutely. And as a streamer myself, I immediately thought of, well, what are things that I need help with? And some of the things I need help with, I mean, obviously, like I mentioned, YouTube editing, man, that is such a big market. And there's so many people I know that are looking for YouTube editors. And a lot of these people that do it and do a great job are self-taught. And so I think it's something that people can easily do in their free time. So you could go down that route of kind of helping somebody with their content creation, like somebody like me as a Twitch streamer, producing YouTube videos. That's not my number one. Live streaming is my number one. And it's something like I said, I really don't have the time to do, or I'd rather hire somebody who can do it better than I can.
Right. For sure.
But then there's also like the side of the tech side of it. I can't tell you how many times I get questions about the tech side of things, of how do I set up like OBS, which is the open broadcast software that gets you to stream, or how do I set up my mic, or they have so many tech questions. And I know that there's a lot of college students that are tech savvy. And I feel like that's such a big needed, and it would be great to have like a place to go to for that. Cause now you just kind of try to find people in your community that know that stuff and that can help you, but it would be great to have a spot. And then the other big thing that comes to mind is so many colleges, universities have esports programs now, and they're putting on these events, and I feel like getting involved and working those events, you'll learn so much, and you'll learn about all the different jobs that go into putting on an event and a production, and maybe realizing like, ooh, I like this part. This part seems really fun.
Right.
And there was honestly that first tournament that I told you that I was hosting at, there was a girl who was volunteering there. I'm not sure how she got connected with them to volunteer, but she was just volunteering at this event. And then I linked up with her and remembered her years later, and she herself was streaming on Twitch. And then she, through all of this progression that she had done, kind of starting at the base and working her way up, she then was like working in like a top level at an esports organization. Last time I chatted with her up in Canada, but she really started at the base, and she got to see like what all goes into this. Where could I fit myself in and enjoy it? And she found her place. Not like she tried the streaming, realized, okay, this is my on camera's not my thing. I want to do behind the scenes and organizing these players and getting them on the team, getting them trained and all of that. There's so many different avenues that are out there. And I think it's just finding your place and where you see, okay, this is needed and this is something I can do.
Right. No, I think it's really great advice. And at the end of the day, like you have to get your foot in the door, and the best way to do so is volunteering, taking your step out there. And I think like one of the things you touch a lot upon, and something that I think, especially on the sports side of education, is like transitioning more and more into what we say like digital transformation in the sport industry and the sports tech side. And obviously, as you mentioned, there's a lot of untapped potential, and I think probably there's a lot of people out there that has digital experience, maybe making videos for fun, and like just, okay, this is a nice, I just do it because I like to learn it. And then maybe there's like streamers out there that need that help, as you were talking about, but then you got to go out, talk with them, and in that sense too, like how are someone like going to reach out to like a streamer, about like, hey, maybe you need some help, for like, is this something, you're looking for? Because I guess like there's always like I think people maybe expect that you guys to know it or do it, which is, I mean, like sort of like a weird thing, but I would just think like, this is probably what people think. So like, how are you going to approach, like, say you needed help, right? As you said, like, okay, I need someone to like edit my YouTube videos. How are they going to approach like people like yourself and streamers to like, I can be here, like maybe help out for you?
Yeah, I will say like most things, cold calling, so to speak, typically doesn't work. At least for me. Like I get messages from people frequently saying like, oh, hey, I can edit YouTube if you need help. Right. And I mean, for me, like, it's just not going to go anywhere. Like, I feel like the best way to do that is to just build a natural bond first. Like find a streamer that you like, maybe somebody that you're already watching, and chat with them, be active in their chat, be active in their Discord, so they get to kind of know you and they have that comfort, because there's so many people that come in and out of the stream all day, but the ones that come in there consistently, and you don't have to be there all day long, but I to the point where I know who they are. I remember their name, and there's somebody that I would be so happy to work with. And then I feel like if you see it's something that they need, they don't have somebody doing their YouTube already, then, and you feel like, okay, they know who I am, they trust who I am, then reach out to them privately, whether it's in Discord or whatever is their preferred way, and just say, hey, just letting you know, this is something I can do if you need it. Here's an example of something I've done. If you're curious, if you have time, whatever you want to say.
What's the value, right? For you, what's the value for you?
Show what you can do, like, and make it easy and accessible. And I feel like building that true bond, like a friendship first, is, 100%. Is the way to get in the door for sure.
Right. And I think just touching upon that too is, if you're going to bring up some examples, like utilize something like, say, like a video that you already been making, or like maybe there's a way you can like edit that, or I guess like there's a way you can like clip something from the stream and say, hey, look what I can do, and like showcase. So now like, because now she's like, all right, here's the value, right? Here's the value that I can provide you.
Here's like a free sample of what I can do with your content. Exactly.
So I mean, like, I think we're on the same page here of like what these students and young professionals should do. But what I would say before we wrap up is sort of, at the end of the day, there's a lot of opportunities. And as you said, Dee, is that you kind of like need to find, what are you passionate about, and like try different things too, because I know there's a lot of people out there that don't know exactly where they want to go. And I guess like esports is still a little bit, what can I do, and if you're going like into event space, I would also say this, that at the end of the day, like events is sort of like organized and structured sort of like the same. Doesn't matter what kind of event it is. So once you kind of like get your experience there, or have experience from like maybe you work like at football stadiums, or maybe you work other kind of events, that experience is relevant for you, even like in the esport industry. So as do you say, like what can you provide of value, and like how can you showcase that? And if you're passionate about that, take the initiative. Say, oh, like maybe you see there's an event going on, or like maybe you see that these like casting an event, and say like, hey, is there any like way I can volunteer, or like be part of that event, because maybe you would know like who would be the best person to speak with. So at the end of the day, you need to take the initiative and be proactive. And with that, I don't know if you have any final comments or remarks before we wrap up.
I don't think so. I guess maybe the one thing I would say is that, kind of like, just to reiterate what we talked about, is you can easily create your own opportunities in this world. That's the beauty of life and social media, is you can be accessible to the streamers or content creators, and you can create those opportunities with them or for yourself, kind of like how I guess I did in a way with the casting, is because I just started hosting the tournaments on my channel. Even before I had like these big tournaments happening, I was just doing small ones, and then you just never know what can come of it. So I do think, like you and I said, like something that you find that you like, and trying different things, and then just go with it, start it, and see what happens, because you really never know.
Absolutely. And with that, T, I would like to thank you so much for taking the time. I wish you all the best with the streams, with your casting career. Who knows? Maybe you go into more professional sports. I think that could be interesting.
I know. I would love that.
That would be great. You gotta keep us posted.
I will.
But nonetheless, with every video podcast we're doing, we're always finishing with "Vi snakkes," which means "see you later" in Norwegian. So now you know some Norwegian.
Okay, that's my first bit of Norwegian.
Yeah. All right, thank you, Dee.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, it was our pleasure.
Thank you.